Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is Austin Scott. Now, just imagine for a second that you have the most coveted job in show business. You have the lead role in the hottest, most groundbreaking play in at least a generation, and you're on Broadway. Right now, that means you play Alexander Hamilton in Lin-Manuel Miranda's gargantuan hit Hamilton. That is the biggest role on any stage in the world, and that's Austin's current job. And I present it in the historical context of all shows across all time because Austin is in his 20s, and it became quickly obvious when Pete and I talked with him, he's just getting started. Austin Scott is from Benicia, California, which is where the Break It Down show was born, so we had some hometown stuff to touch on. But while he's certainly not forgotten where he's from, Austin's talent and work ethic have found their home on a stage for the whole world. He's got the looks, the voice, and the control of his physicality, all the tools to be the star of the stage and screen, and he's got the clarity of vision and the desire for longevity to understand the value, the responsibility, and the fleeting nature of his very big current job, and to use it to create even bigger and more meaningful opportunities to explore his craft and create things that I'm sure we'll all enjoy in the coming years. Now, if you enjoy the Break It Down show and our quest to bring you acclaimed people doing interesting and brilliant work, we could use your help to keep it going. So wherever you're listening to the show, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, please shoot us out a 5-star rating and a positive review so that others can find us on those platforms. And share the show on your social media with the folks you think will also enjoy it. We really appreciate you listening and appreciate you passing on the good word. We're also going to ask you to support our friends, the Stacy family, through the Gary Sinise Foundation. They were on earlier this week, and we want to support them and the great work that Gary Sinise does for them and many others. So please go back a couple of episodes, listen to that one if you haven't already, and go to GarySiniseFoundation.org, read about them, and help wherever and whenever you can. And with that, here's our episode with our new favorite actor, Austin Scott.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Moranis.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Austin Scott from the Broadway show Hamilton, and you're listening to the Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yes, indeed. Austin Scott is an actor, performer, but I guess we could call you a rapper at this point.
You could.
And has taken over some really large shoes to fill in the role of Hamilton. I would say, compared to Lin-Manuel Miranda, who came up with a genius show, you taking those reins is really something else. And I'll just venture to say you're better looking, man.
Thank you.
So how did it all start, man? How did you get into dramatic arts, and tell us your path?
Oh, man. So, I really started when I was like 8, probably. I was always kind of like, class clown. I was like to make people laugh and stuff like that. And the first, I think I was walking in San Ramon with my mom, and we walked by like an acting studio that was offering like kids classes, and something just pulled me in. And like, I was just, I said, I want to go in there. Can we check it out? And she did. And walked in, and they gave us the spiel, and she signed me up for classes. And that's kind of how it started. And then I did like a Chia Pet commercial when I was in 5th grade, which is, the Chia.
Uh-huh.
I did like, things like that, and like little community theater productions and independent films and stuff. And that was kind of my path all the way through high school, really. Just kind of, I did it for fun, trying to get something going, but there's not a lot of work in the Bay Area. And then I moved to LA after high school. And just to give you the shorthand version, we can dive into it more later. But yeah, I moved to LA after high school, lived there for a few years, then moved to New York, and then did a few more projects, and eventually got here.
You followed a similar path to me throughout high school. I ultimately was a model, Captain Morgan.
Yes.
And in high school, I was a bit of a rapper. My rapping name is the Saran Rapper because I like to wrap it up tight and keep it fresh.
My man.
Yeah. And we come from the same high school. Big reveal. Holy shit, man.
BHS, baby.
That's right. The Panthers coming at you. So The program at school, did you participate much in it? What was your involvement? Was it like we had Todd Nunes, who's a Hollywood director of horror films. He would go out and recruit us and just compel us to do his after school plays and all that kind of thing. What was your involvement at the high school in terms of what you did, or was that not your path?
So I didn't really do many of the musicals. Like I wasn't in the drama program, actually. I did one musical my very last, like my senior year. I had injured myself, and so I wasn't playing basketball as much anymore. And like, I was like, oh, let me go check this out. But all throughout high school, I was on the varsity improv team. So that was my like in with the artistic community at BHS.
Hey, this is Pete. Real quick, I just want to let you guys know we are proud to announce our official support of Save the Brave, a certified nonprofit 501c3 with a charter of helping veterans with post-traumatic stress. Here's how you can help. Go to savethebrave.com, click on the link on the website, and my recommendation is this. Subscribe. Give them $20 a month. You've got subscriptions that you can turn off right now that you're not using that are $20 a month. Swap that out. Get involved. Let's help these folks out.
But all throughout high school, I was on the varsity improv team. So that was my like in with the artistic community at BHS. And I love to make people laugh. I love to just like act a fool. And so, yeah, I did that all 4 years. And then I was a rapper in high school too. My rap name was, what was my rap name? I think it was just AS. At first it was like Big Oss, and then I think it turned into AS. So I had a couple of rap groups, and we actually made some albums, and we sold them at high school. We even actually partnered with there was this clothing brand whose daughter went to the high school, and we partnered with them to make a theme song for BHS, and they played it at all the rallies and stuff like that. We did it to the Wiz Khalifa's Blue and Yellow, or what was it? Black and Yellow.
Yeah.
But we called it Blue and Yellow. So that was, they played that for a long time, but I wasn't in the drama program, but I was tangent to it, you know.
Sure.
Graduating class of what, Austin?
2011.
2011. Okay, so not that long ago, man. So you really stepped into those large shoes, and you're on Broadway really in short order.
Yeah, you could look at it that way for sure. I mean, you know, for me, like, again, it feels like I kind of started when I was 8, so it feels like quite a while.
Yeah.
That I kind of built the building blocks for this. But yeah, man, great to be here.
Actually, you know what? Your path took you from the Bay Area to LA. And of course, you know, in a lot of the performing art, you have to make your way through LA or New York. And now you've done both. But somewhere along the way, you and I have a mutual friend, Aaliyah Loney.
Oh, yeah. See, I did a film with her, I think like my first year of college. She was just at the show a couple weeks ago, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So along the way, you've collected this, you, as everybody does in this path, you've collected allies, and everybody helps each other, and you propel each other to the next level. How did LA push you to New York? How did you get this role in Hamilton? And tell us about that.
Yeah, so let me dig into that a little bit. So I went to LA because I did a casting director workshop with a casting director named Paul Reddy in San Francisco. And he casts like, you know, Disney projects, and independent films and TV movies and things like that. So we talked after the workshop, and he was like, yo, I really like your work. I'd love to take you down to LA, see if I can get you set up with like professional manager, professional agent, and all that stuff. So I did it. I went down, I met with a bunch of people, signed with, you know, my first manager and an agent down there. And that's where I really kind of did a lot of learning in LA, I think. I had a lot of like arguments with my agents and stuff as I like learned, you know, who I was and what kind of projects I was really right for, and, you know, what my niche was. And I did like TV movies and, you know, random little things here and there, like little TV guest spots on shows you've never seen. I shot a movie out in Sofia, Bulgaria, a horror TV movie called Hell. You know, I had a great time, almost killed myself. And then I was also doing theater, like new theater works, right? I was doing like workshops of new shows. And one of those was called Inappropriate at the time, which eventually went to off Broadway here in New York, called One Day. And so when that made the switch, I moved with it. I didn't make the move, but I came out here and then lived here for a few months with that show. And then while I was doing that show, I ended up auditioning for another show that was in kind of workshop on its way to Broadway called Gotta Dance, which was a Jerry Mitchell show. And after I did that, it just kind of became clear that there was a lot of opportunities for me in New York. So I moved out there with my girlfriend at the time and moved out here, got set up with New York branch of my LA agency, and kind of just been here ever since.
That's a lot of simplifying a lot of steps, though. You almost died in Sophia. Please expand.
Well, so
Sacrificing for your art.
Exactly. Well, so the budget for it was not huge, and a lot of the crew did not speak very good English. So that was, right away. And like we were dealing with massive flames because it's called They Found Hell. So the majority of the movie takes place like in hell with giant demons running around and like, people getting slashed up and whatever. And like, so there were moments where like we would have to run across this old abandoned power plant bridge that was suspended about like 400 feet off the ground. And it was so old that there were holes in the ground that just like would drop straight through. And so their solution was like, yeah, no, we want to get this shot. So we're just going to like lay tarps and sand over the holes. And you guys just remember where the holes are. And then, just remember where the holes are. And it was like, okay. So there was a lot of that. There was like, for the smoke, because there was a lot of smoke, they used this chemical that's actually used for enemas, I think. And they just like burned it to make this black smoke. And, you're really not supposed to be breathing that in. So every night I'd get back to the hotel and I'd be scrubbing this like black tar out of my nose and my mouth. And, so it was a good time. It was a really good time. Learned a lot, had fun.
So you had to explain away how you had this enema fluid residue.
That's exactly right.
In your esophagus. Like, we were making a movie.
I promise.
I promise.
I promise you.
And then meanwhile, you're asked to watch out, remember where the holes are. They're covered with sand and tarp. And by the way, run and emote. And make sure you hit your mark so we get the shot, because we want to have to do this a couple times.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And somebody whose English was not that strong.
Now you get
the recipe for a great movie.
Exactly. They're like, there is a demon behind you, so run like your life depends on it, but don't die by falling through these holes. Yes.
So one of the running themes with all of the creative type folks, especially the actors, is understanding that, getting to know yourself. What is your truth? What do you bring to the screen? Like Michael Gaston, also from Benicia, he's 6'3", 6'4", just a big, imposing guy, and all he has to do is loom. And the emotions happen. What did you learn about you?
Oh boy. I think, there was some time where, I think I went to LA thinking I was the funny guy who could do serious. And then my agents and my managers kind of made the choice for me that I was not the funny guy without even hearing me do anything funny. They looked at me and said, okay, you look like this kind of actor. Therefore, that's the kind of stuff we're going to send you out for. And so it took me a while to kind of like, one, embrace that other more serious side of me, but then also like learn to meld the two, and so like understand that I could be both, and I could be, didn't have to cancel each other out. So that was one thing, but also, I mean, I'm 6'4" too. So my height has definitely been, I don't want to say an obstacle, but something that I've obviously taken into all the rooms with me, and like, plays a big part in like the roles that I get and how I play roles, and, who I play opposite and all of that stuff. So I've played the bad guy a bunch of times. I just did this really fun new show out in Dallas a couple of years ago where it's all about Robin Hood. So I played the evil sheriff of Nottingham. And I got to like sword fight with these massive dreadlocks, and I was in this huge costume. I was just this big, like huge hulking presence the whole time. And that was really fun to get to do, but then sometimes I play the like wiry, nerdy kid, you know what I mean? And I think what I learned overall is just, and what I'm still learning is like embracing the dichotomy, or embracing the multitude of me.
Yeah, Michael said something similar. Like he'll show up to an audition, and this guy's worked with all of the top names in the business, directors, actors, everybody. And he'll show up and they'll say, "Oh, how tall are you?" And he'll say, "That's a bad sign,"
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
And then the other thing he said was that he was talking with Powers Booth. They were working on a project together, and Powers Booth worked his whole life. And Powers said, "I never knew where the next gig was coming from." But he had to become okay with that. And that's sort of where Michael's at. It's like, I know there's another gig coming, until they don't. But for right now, I've got all the gigs I can handle. Do you have a sense of that? Yes, you've got a world-class gig, and maybe you do this for the next 20 years. Who knows? But what are your thoughts on becoming something? I don't know. What are your thoughts on the security of what you have in your career?
Yeah, I think being an actor, you kind of, to a degree, have to throw security out the window. It's not,
Right.
it's not.
That's
you're
not
never
even a
gonna-
thing.
Yeah, you're never gonna have the tenure or the okay, I can stay at this desk job for 9 years and know that I will be making this money plus a bonus every year, blah blah blah. You cannot. That's not a real thing here with this business. So, I think the way I'm looking at it right now is I'm auditioning and I'm doing other projects while I'm in Hamilton. I just shot Pose, which might turn into something, reoccurring. We'll see. But I'm using Hamilton as a home base to really book the next job, to get.
That's a hell of a home base.
Yeah, it's a hell of a home base. Exactly. Exactly.
And it got you Pose. And so now you're gone from 18th century wigs and garb to Speedo. How's that?
A little different. It was, it was really fun. It was so fun just to break out to do something so drastically different, because like I said, I've been doing Hamilton now for almost 2 years and I love it, but it can get monotonous for sure. You're doing the same thing 7-8 times a week after week after week. And so just getting to go and like step into a different character whenever I get that opportunity, I love it. But especially that running around in slow motion in a Speedo being called Black Hasselhoff, like that was a real break from the monotony for sure.
You could be called worse.
Yeah, exactly.
How does your comedic timing inform your dramatic roles? I mean, if you're getting sent out on dramatic stuff, but you're born funny, tell us the advantage of that. Yeah,
I think from the years that I didn't really use it, it got a little rusty. I'm getting to brush it off a little with this show for sure. I'm trying to find my moments. I don't know. I think that's life. I don't think life is really either serious or all funny, like 100%. I think it's like being able to have the deep, serious underbelly in my work, but then also find the moments of like lightness and comedy and, whatever, I think just makes me a more well-rounded actor and makes my characters and my performances more deep and well-rounded, honestly, or at least I would hope. Sometimes I say things and people don't laugh, and that's always a sad moment. But
Would you say that comedic timing is musical?
Is it musical? So I'm not like a true comedian. There are like, for instance, the guy who plays Aaron Burr in our show, I would call him a true comedic actor. Although he does serious very, very well. But so for him, I can tell it's almost scientific. I would call it more scientific than, or like mathematical than musical maybe, because it's, I think it can be, if I take a pause here, set it up in this way with, this breath and this look at this moment, all of that combines together to equal this size laugh. And if I play with that equation, I can change the laugh. I can change the quality of the laugh. I can change the blah, blah, blah. And so I'll watch true comedic actors do that. And I'm in awe of their ability to do that. I think mine is a little more, maybe because I came from like a improv background more so. Mine's a little more just like, I'm just I'm going to keep going, or I'm just going to make this as crazy as I need to for you to laugh. And so it's a little more off the cuff, I think, with me, and different from night to night. And, I think that's just, there are different styles of comedy and different kinds of comedic timing, I think.
That's pretty cool. That's heavy.
Yeah.
When you compare the difference between stage, especially musical stage acting, and, TV, it seems to me from the people that we've had on, the gestures on stage are a lot bigger, and you've got to get comfortable with outsizing your outsized personality to really hit the back of the crowd, right? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I think it's a dial. I think I'm of the school of thought that acting is acting. I think people have different opinions on that, but I think acting is acting. It's a dial. You turn it up for theater, you turn it down for film and make it a little more subtle. But so on tour, I was playing to houses. I think the biggest house we had was like 4,500 seats. And so for those houses, yeah, you had to crank it up. You had to, really give your voice everything you could to hit those people in the back, and like, get your eyebrows going so they can see the expressions, whereas on film, it can all be in the eyes. Like, it's got to be gestures and all of that on stage. But the fun thing about this house, the Broadway house, is it's actually the smallest house I've ever played this show in. I think it's only about 1,200 people.
Wow.
And so even as I was preparing to come here, like the creatives were were talking to me about it. They're like, I think you're really going to like Broadway because it's almost more cinematic. It's more intimate. And I've always considered myself, and I've been told that I'm kind of more of a cinematic actor. I'm naturally a little more subtle. And so coming here was really a big relief because it made the show feel just a little more, I wasn't blowing my voice out, and I wasn't, on tour. Like I would literally, I had times where I had to call out of the show because I would like strain my arm because of how big my gesture was, So yeah, it's, you kind of alter it and tailor it to the size of the house and the show that you're doing. And because some shows are much campier and more over the top, and some are more realistic and settled. And so I think Hamilton is more towards the real, more towards the settled than it is campy, but it's got its moments, So it's
I'm having fun in my head with the fact that somebody told you, I think you're going to like Broadway. Yeah. How do you react to that? I think I might too.
Call me crazy. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you might like Broadway.
That's like, you know what? I think you're going to have a good time playing shortstop at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I think that might be pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like, it's the same show, right? And there's now 5 or 6 companies of this show across the world. And so all doing more or less the same show, but in vastly different environments. And so that's kind of how, the creatives will bounce through all the companies, and that's how they talk about it. It's like Broadway's big and shiny because it's Broadway, but it's also just it's just one of the several environments in which this show is being done. And so they talk about it in that way. They're like, yeah, well, San Francisco is this kind of environment. London is this kind of environment. And Chicago is this kind, and Broadway is this kind. And so, you just you tailor and you learn how to sustain the show.
Work the differences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you did pose in the Speedo, were you like, man, wait till these guys see how I work my eyebrows?
Yes, I think so. I got a lot of crap for that for sure, but also.
So you've been the road touring show Hamilton, and you're the Broadway one now. So there's a pretty strong compare and contrast there. Before we get into that, though, I want to ask you, the life on the road, is that more restrictive as far as what you can do? I mean, you're in a lot of different cities. Heck, you guys went to I don't know if you went to Puerto Rico, but your company toured to Puerto Rico at one point. That's just a lot of moving around, and you've got to take care of your body. You got to take care of your voice. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, but then slide that into the compare and contrast of Broadway versus road show life.
Yeah. So, I learned more about myself on tour than I have probably in my other 23 years of life. Tour was a very different beast from Broadway. Tour, we were in a different city every 3 or 4 weeks. Usually there was a couple long sit downs where we were there for 3 or 4 months. I was DC and Boston. For the most part, every time you switch cities, we would be going from Tempe, Arizona, 90-degree weather, dry desert, to Denver, mountains, cold, no oxygen. There were literally oxygen tanks on the side of the stage so that people would, the dancers and the actors would come off and they'd get a hit of oxygen so that they could continue doing the show. So that learning how to, do the same show in massively different climates and, all of that was very interesting. And for at least the first 6 months, when I wasn't doing the show, I was a hermit. I couldn't go out. I still can't really go out because this role is just that intense, but I was sleeping a lot. I developed some really intense self-care routines, massages, hydration, nutrition, exercise, all of these things to just kind of keep myself going. But also on tour in these cities, most of the time, your cast and your company are the only people you know. And so therefore on tour, it definitely felt like a lot more of a family and more tight knit. And, you got to know people, I think, a lot better. But then transitioning to Broadway's a little more, here you've got people with families and you've got people who've been here for, some of the people have been with the show for over 3 years, and they've got, we have lives here. We show up, we do the show, and we go back to our lives. Whereas on tour, your lives kind of revolve around the show. So here it's a little more, you show up, you do your job, and you go home, and that's great. But, then also the community is a little bit different than here than it was on tour. But I would say physically, the show was more difficult on tour but possibly mentally it's more difficult here in some ways, just because of you don't have the breaking up of the monotony with like changing cities and changing climates and, all of that different stuff. So yeah, they're two different beasts, really. But I'm so grateful I got the chance to do both.
People underestimate the amount of physical care you have to give yourself in a touring company.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that, one of the other themes that we hear from guys who spend a lot of years on the road was that, especially if they have careers with any longevity, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they took care of themselves and they exercised and they had that kind of regiment that you mentioned. You also, though, have the delicate pipes to take care of, because your voice is much of your presence in the show. That is the most delicate thing to take care of. Tell us about your regiment to take care of your voice. What do you do?
Hey, this is P.A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
Tell us about your regiment to take care of your voice. What do you do?
Just in general, even now here in New York, I've amassed probably a team of 15, 20 people who all work together to keep me put together. And that's PTs, that's massage therapists, that's vocal coaches, that's vocal doctors, it list goes on, movement coaches, like it goes on and on and on. And it's really all connected, because the way I gesture, the way I hold my back affects the way I breathe, which then affects the support that I have for my voice, which then affects how long my voice lasts or how, I use my voice. So it's like keeping the body, the mind, the nutrition, and the voice are all connected. So specifically, like I go in an ideal situation, in an ideal week, I'll go and I'll get vocal PT 2 times a week, which is essentially like massaging the voice box and all the muscles and the breathing muscles and the diaphragm and all that stuff to just make sure that's all moving and not getting too overworked or too tight or anything like that. And then I'll go and I'll have a voice lesson with Liz Kaplan here, who is incredible. She works with all the, Broadway stars and Broadway people. And then once a week, I'll have my man Rich Malanga come out here and to my apartment and like give me a massage / more PT to help me stretch out and all of that stuff. And then I have to go and see a voice doctor and get scoped every like 3 months just to make sure that there's no problems forming. And so that's like the physical side of it. And then, also it's like, I've got to make sure I'm eating right, because, you have to have enough protein to fuel your voice. And, you can't eat certain things right before a show, because then that will cause more phlegm and stuff. And I mean, literally the list goes on and on and on. It is a full-time job.
Full-time job is an understatement.
No, man, seriously. I mean, it takes a village to keep us together, and you're constantly like, you're at the theater, either 3 hours a day if you have one show, or 6 hours, if you have 2. But the rest of those hours, you're keeping yourself together. You're doing your routines and you're watching what you eat and drink, and
One of the things about being a high-end performer, which is exactly what you are, is you do have to have these teams of people. How much of this stuff is provided by the show to keep you show ready? And how much is this is on you as a professional who Barry Bonds had to have a chef to cook him exactly what he needed every day, so he was always balanced in his physicality. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Hamilton takes really good care of us. They really do. They cover a good amount of it. But there are things that are unique to me, being for whatever reason, that like I go out and I, spend my own money on, just because I know that I need that to keep myself together. So like, yeah, they definitely take care of and cover quite a bit of it, but there's a lot. there's quite a bit. Yeah, I think every performer kind of just tailors their own team and tailors, they figure out over the course of performing and all of that, really what they need and what their mind, bodies, and souls need to keep doing the thing, and then make it happen, find the money where they need to.
You've been exposed at a pretty early stage in your career to a very complex role and a historical one, and it really sort of gives you carte blanche to do anything you want. What do you see yourself doing? I mean, like, what if you look ahead down your career, which, we can just entertain ourselves because who knows,
right.
But what are some of the things that you're interested in doing, given the fact that you played Alexander Hamilton on stage in a musical that is very lyric heavy? That's a lot of honing a variety of different skills.
For sure. I mean, that's one of the things I've been most grateful about with this role is that it really is like, it's like a 14-course meal for an actor, for a performer. I mean, I get to hone my rapping skills, which, like, how many musicals do you get to rap in?
Right.
So, like, I get to, hone my rapping and my diction and my breath support for, fast speaking, but then also I get to sing a little bit. So I get to hone my voice, and I get to dance a lot, but there's movement. So I get to hone so many things, plus so many, he starts the show at 19. He's 47 when he dies at the end of the show. That's, math is not my strong suit. I'm an actor, but that's like, what, 30 years? The show covers like 30 years of his life.
The number you're looking for is hella.
Hell.
Yeah, there you go. Come on, I forgot. That's a very hella. That's hella years. And so, I mean, he starts a revolution. He's an immigrant. He has a son, gets married, loses his son, cheats on his wife, dies. Like, all of the, creates the financial system of the United States. Like, there is so much to sink your teeth into, and so many muscles to flex and stretch and work that, I think sky's the limit. Honestly, I would love to do some more TV and film. I've got some possible projects like swirling around that I might do, but I'd love to like originate a role in a new show, and really, because that's something that I've done with quite a few shows, but none that have actually made it all the way to Broadway yet. So I'd love to take a show from the beginning stages and get it all the way to Broadway. That'd be really fun. So yeah, I'm kind of just riding the wave and seeing what doors open up for me.
One of the first guests we had on a show was a friend of John's growing up, and he's got and has had a steady gig playing bass for Ka in Las Vegas. And it's one of those things where he's this world-class bass player, but he's got this steady corporate gig where he's got a retirement and benefits and all these things.
Yeah.
And he's done over 6,000 of these shows.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think they're at 12,000.
It might be, man. The number's fucking huge.
Yeah.
They play a lot of shows. When you sign up to be a rock star, you don't picture that life, but that's a pretty sweet gig. Yeah, every now and then they go on it, they take the show on the road, but for the most part, he lives in Vegas and knows exactly what his schedule is going to be. If that was 15 years from now for you, are you pretty happy, or do you feel like this is a stage and that you're purposely going to change it into something else later on?
You mean specifically with this?
With this Hamilton. Like, is this like if you woke up 20 years from now and you were still Hamilton?
Oh, no, that's not possible. I'm not actually aware of any actor. There's been, what am I? So I'm the fourth actor to play Hamilton full time on Broadway, and I think I was the sixth actor to ever play the role for full time. And I think there's maybe only been one actor that's done it for longer than 2 years. And I'm coming up on 2 years right now. And so I'm actually,
You're getting restless?
I'm getting a little restless, but it's also just, it's very emotionally and mentally draining. I think there are roles that you can kind of do indefinitely. And I don't think this is one of them. I think
too much emotion.
It's just, it's just a lot of emotion, a lot of, he starts the show, really the entire show, he's more or less in fight or flight. He's this person that lives on the balls of his feet, always feels like he's running out of time, always has something to prove, so that is exhausting to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like 7 times a week. And like, listen, I do it gladly, but like, I'm very aware of the toll that it takes on my mind and my body, and that it's taken on, my other friends who play the role. So I'm not necessarily going to be done after 2 years, but I definitely know that I'm going to at least
an expiration date.
Yeah, there's an expiration date for sure. And that doesn't mean that like I would never come back to it. But, I think there's definitely an expiration date where I will step away, do some other projects, kind of let myself recuperate and everything, and then, possibly come back to it down the road.
Man, I love your reflectiveness on all of this stuff. I mean, you really clearly have analyzed where your place is in this and what this is in terms of its place in your life. What would you say is when we're kids, let's face it, anybody who wanted to be involved in dramatic arts probably just wanted to be an action star. So what do you feel about that genre, man? Do you think you'd want to morph into something that was a little more action oriented from where you are now?
I love how often I get asked this question. I never would have expected to be asked it so much. I would love to be a Marvel superhero. I would love to break into that world. That would be super fun. I've never seen myself like, I'm not a Tom.
But is it because of the action, or is it because they get so many good lines? Marvel heroes get great lines.
They do get. That's so true. That's so true. They do get great lines. Maybe a little bit of both. I don't think after doing my stint in Sofia, Bulgaria with the with the Hell movie, I don't think I would want to put my body through that on a regular basis. So I think like maybe playing a more cerebral superhero or something who doesn't get in fights that much would be nice. But like I said, I got to do a little bit of that with that Robin Hood musical I did, right? We trained for months in sword fighting, and we were swinging around these big heavy swords and getting in fights and all of this stuff. And that gave me a little taste of that life too. And I think in moderation, I would love to have some of that on my plate, but I don't think I'm going to be a Tom Cruise anytime soon.
I mean, clearly you have physicality to get stuff. So right. What about writing? Are you writing?
I used to write more than I do now. I'm not so much. I think I've always kind of felt like writing I'll wake up one day and I'll be in a place in my life where I'm like, oh, I want to transition over a little bit. I don't think I'll ever stop performing necessarily, but I definitely think writing and directing there will be a season in my life where that becomes a big part of my life for sure. But I don't think I'm quite there yet.
One of the things I do every year is I go back to BHS and I talk to, primarily seniors that are getting ready to graduate. I'm a robot from the future. I'm you, and so I answer their questions and I give them insight. Like, okay, you've been at this since you were 8, but as a pro, it took a long time to get where you're at. You didn't just show up on Broadway. You had to work a lot, do a lot of things. Give our young creative people, especially the folks at BHS, some insight as to the possibilities to be a performing arts person, whether it's in front of the camera on stage or, doing stagecraft. Talk a little bit about that path and what's reality, and just give us some expectations for it, because people want to be you. They see you, right, and you change people's lives when they go to that theater on Broadway.
Yeah. If you want to be an artist, if you want to be a creative, like the process has to be more important than the outcome. Yeah. Obviously the dream is to be in a show like this or to be, in a major hit movie or major TV series. But, the reality is when you start out on that path, like that just may not be in the cards for you, or it may not be, it may be several years down the road. And so like if the only goal is to be quote unquote famous or to, make a shit ton of money or, whatever, it's going to be really hard to find fulfillment and enjoyment as you go along. And so I think I would just kind of say, if this is something you want to do, it needs to be because you love it, because, you can't imagine doing anything else, being up on stage or being in front of a camera or writing or, making music, whatever the creative endeavor is, like it has to be something that you listen. There are very small percentage of true overnight success stories in which, people do. They're in the right place at the right time with the right mindset and the right skill set and all of that. And they just, skyrocket. But for the most part, the overnight success stories, what look like overnight success stories, were actually 8, 12, 20 years in the making. And so, yeah, I would just say you're going to hear a lot of no's. Before I booked Hamilton, I probably went on 400 auditions maybe. And, the vast majority of those auditions were no, too tall, too, young, too old, too urban, not urban enough, need you to be blacker, whatever. And, so you got to just kind of be doing it because you love it. And the yeses and the nos can't be the only thing that matters. That's a long-winded explanation, but
don't think about that for a second. Cause I hate to use the word, your responses are very, very seasoned, and to be in the position you are now, clearly you were not just ready for the role in terms of your ability to do the job, the tasks of the job, but the folks who cast you saw something in you, some quality in you that you were in your life and in your being and in your career prepared to perform this role. And so I shouldn't be surprised by the seasoned nature of your answers, but I still am kind of. And it's really nice to hear, man, because when, we've been very fortunate to have guests all across the spectrum. And usually the type of answers that you're delivering and the way that I'm finding myself reacting to you is typically reserved for somebody who's at a place in his career where he's gotten his ass kicked for 30 years. And, so, it really makes me hopeful for the longevity and the fact that you're going to navigate this kind of a career and make some really strong choices. So I just want to say before I don't get a chance to say it, that, man, I'm excited to see where your career goes and how it unfolds, and to see these places that are really milestones that you're already, I won't say anticipating, but when you ask an actor if he's writing, usually the answer is, yeah, I'm dabbling, I'm figuring it out, I'm just getting my formatting down. Everybody's just, because actors have to write to some degree, just so you can understand what you're reading and all of that stuff.
Exactly.
And then hopefully so you can create roles that challenge you for you.
Absolutely.
But to know that there's a season in your life where that will mean more to you is a huge answer, because what it also means is that you're dedicated specifically right now to the task at hand. Right. And so where are you looking for that task as you transition out of Hamilton? Do you see a career in New York, in Los Angeles? What do you prefer?
I think I'll always want to have a presence in both, on both coasts for sure.
That's what a pimp says.
Listen, baby, I'm building, child. I'm building. I've just got an apartment out here, so I'm getting it set up here. My next goal is to buy an apartment in LA for sure, so that I have those set. Because the reality is that the vast majority of theater is here in New York, but there's a lot of film and TV in LA for sure. And I think if you want any kind of legitimate career in both realms, you got to expect to be going back and forth. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely think I'll probably be here in New York for, at least a few more years, probably full time, just to really cement myself here. And, because I've put some roots down in LA already. And then, I think, the dream is that one day I'm just kind of I'll probably be living with my family someplace outside of both markets. I'll probably be living up in the mountains somewhere when, hopefully if my career ever gets to a place where I'm just getting sent scripts. But yeah, I think I'll always have a presence in both areas.
Yeah, I picked you for a mountains kind of guy. Maybe you'll be in Colorado Springs somewhere and you commute in. I'm almost sure that will happen, because you'll get busy enough that is people need an isolation and insulation from all of that stuff that you're pursuing once you get it wired tight. Fashion seems to rotate back and forth. Things that were in style, or the fanny pack has come back. Are we going to see a time when knee breeches and stockings come back for men?
He got questions.
He got questions. I know. That segue. Oh, you're definitely living in the mountains. Fashion is cyclical. My man. I tell you what, if they are like they make the costumes in this show, I would not be surprised. These costumes are dope, man. They fit us perfectly, and they're made of suede, and we look fly. I'm not gonna lie, we look fly. And there's one costume I wear in the second act. It's this all green money suit, basically we call it, and the fabric is really pretty tight. And so again, like I said, I have a tendency to act the fool. So there was this moment in one of the rap battles where I would always go down and pick up this severed head and pretend to play whatever. And I would always rip my pants. And by the third time that I ripped these pants, they said, we just want you to know that this is a $10,000 suit. So maybe not rip. So that's just a funny thing. But yeah, maybe. You never know. I think it's a cool style. Maybe not.
Yeah, might be a stretch, but suede pants though.
Yeah, listen.
if not this show, what other musical would you want to do? Like, so just in general for the audience, man, you guys got to go out and see some musicals. I know it seems like that's not a cool thing to do, but let me correct your incorrect position. I've seen so many of them. So here's how many I've seen. I liked Hamilton a lot. It is not the favorite musical I have seen in the last 5 years or even 2 years.
Nice.
I saw Come From Away, and man, I loved it. You know, it's such a, they have about, I think like 15 chairs, 15 players, and they play about 150 roles in there.
Yes.
And it was just incredible. So go get your doors blown off by going and seeing some live theater, because I'm telling you, Austin is not alone with this talent. There are some really, really, really incredible people. If not Hamilton, what other show is out there? You know, you don't have a whole lot of time probably to go see them, but what you're like, man, I'd love to go do that show.
Oh boy. I don't know if there's necessarily like a role in it for me, but I really love Dear Evan Hansen. That's another one of my favorites. I just think it's genius. It's genius work. It's high art. And yeah, the music in it is so strong. The acting, the writing of the characters is just brilliant. So that's one I think you could definitely recommend seeing. I don't really have many other dream roles right now. I've always said that Lion King is that's one of the first musicals I ever saw, and still just seeing so many strong Black actors and performers up on that stage doing the thing, and with the costuming and the genius set work and all of that, that's still one of my favorite shows as well. So, playing Simba, I think for maybe a very small amount of time could be really fun. But, I recently saw Hades Town, and that was really great. And I saw, the Temptations musical, blanking. It's right next door. That's crazy. But yeah, the musical about the Temptations is really, really incredible. There's a lot of great theater out there. If you can make a trip to New York or even just see the touring productions, like musical theater is not what people who don't know musical theater is.
That is true.
It can be so much more.
That is true. And I think that, it's changed in the last, several years. And especially with a show like Hamilton, the landscape is changing, and it's updating, and it's pushing the limits. I had the good fortune last week of spending the evening with a guy named David Porter. And he was writing partners with Isaac Hayes, and they wrote songs like Soul Man and a lot of the 60s. They wrote Stax catalog.
Wow.
He knew at that point, even back then, we did some analysis of his lyrics and stuff, and he had burden on him back then that he needed to make cultural strides. He felt like he had a responsibility, especially as his voice started to gain traction. Felt like he needed to put a message out there and create art that attracted people and brought people together. You got into the season of your career where you feel that kind of pressure, and do you think that sort of responsibility should belong to an artist?
I wouldn't call it a responsibility. I think that it is a very honorable path that an artist can take, or specifically an actor can take, is to use their platform for political activism or any kind of just social change. But I think that just being a creative, just being an artist in general, like you're holding a mirror up to life. And I think just by doing the work that we do, in a lot of ways, we're, I believe, helping society and help to expand people's minds and expand people's belief systems, and maybe challenge belief systems and prejudices and whatnot. And so I think sometimes just being in a show like Hamilton feels like being a part of a revolution, because I know, listen, we're doing a show about the founding fathers played by actors of color, and, talking about the king is in the show it was written before obviously Trump was elected, but it's there's some striking similarities, I think, to the king and to Trump and to just that part of our society in general. And so I think, getting to be up on that stage as an actor of color, telling a story as important as this, as the founding of our country, feels like an act of revolution in a way. It feels like getting to do this for majority of the audiences are white and over 50, getting to give that to them and expose them to that. It feels powerful. That feels like an act of almost rebellion in a way, or, an act of social change. And so it's an opportunity to use your platform to be able to fight for those kind of changes and everything. But I don't think that it's necessarily something that every actor should feel it's incumbent on them to use their platform for that, otherwise, or they're failing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I will say to our audience that Austin Scott is with us today. He's an actor with a powerful role and a definitely powerful sensibility. And man, it's been great talking with you. And I'm really, like I said, I don't want to be surprised, because you've clearly demonstrated your ability to perform this role, not just on stage, but to embody the character. And that says a lot about you, but I'm really looking forward to what you do next. Honored that we had you on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much.
You too.